Right, welcome everyone. This is now session 2. So today we're going to just finish off the user interface little exercise that we started on Monday. Now, just to obviously to continue or get us started, we're going to work on the or open up the hotel model that we had a look at on Monday as well. That was under Revit short exercises, this one here, modern hotel. So we're going to reopen that file and then just continue identifying the parts of the Revit screen, the numbers 1 to 10. So opening up the hotel file again to the 3D view. Now, so I think we covered numbers 3, 4, 6, 7, 2 and 9. Now, number 3, did we have a look at number 3? I don't think we did we? No. So number 3 is actually pointing up here to this tab here, which is File. So number 3 is in fact the File tab, and it just gives us access to a broader number of options to do with opening a project or a family, for instance, starting a new project, family, and so forth. Doing a save as, exporting, so it allows us to export to other CAD formats. So the thing is that if you have obviously produced a Revit model and you've got a floor plan detailed, you can actually export that as an AutoCAD drawing. So it exports out as an AutoCAD drawing, and it also then produces a series of standard layers. So yeah, and that can be used straight away inside AutoCAD. And alternatively, you can actually import an AutoCAD drawing into a Revit floor plan and trace it. So when you're actually adding your walls to build your model, you can actually snap them to your AutoCAD lines in your floor plan in Revit. So we'll have a look at that maybe in a few sessions' time as to how that works. That's quite a nice little technique to quickly develop a model based on an AutoCAD drawing. So exporting, printing, of course, different print options. Now, the File tab also gives you access to the Options button here, which we'll have a look at. So if you're wanting to change any aspect of the software, this is general settings, I guess, including things like the save reminder interval. Now, when you're working with Revit, Revit doesn't do automatic saves, not like AutoCAD does. AutoCAD will actually do automatic saves every few minutes, but Revit doesn't automatically save. So you have to consciously save whatever you're doing manually as frequently as you can. It will give you save reminders. Where I am at the moment, mine is set to 15 minutes. And what I suggest you do here and at home is actually change this to 15 minutes so that you're prompted more frequently for saving. Now, other things that you can do here, user interface, you can turn off different tabs if you don't want to see them. There is some customization here for keyboard shortcuts.
So is that, I've hovered over the save, and then what did you click on to get that stuff?
That was going back to here. The save reminder.
Yes, I just wanted to know how to get to there. Basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that was file and options. Yeah. So under general, we changed that back from 30 to 15. Under user interface, you've got some settings that you can have a look at there. Now, we're going to have a look at or talk more about keyboard shortcuts later. Now, I have given the class a list of Revit hotkeys, which are probably the majority of hotkeys that are already set within Revit. But if you want to have a look at the entire collection or the entire set of hotkeys in Revit, if you click on keyboard shortcuts and the button Customize, over here you've got keyboard shortcuts and you've got the entire list of Revit commands, including those that have shortcuts allocated to them. Now, if for instance you want to find out what shortcuts you can use for zooming and navigation, in the search up here, you can actually type in the word zoom, let's say, and Revit will just give you a list relating to all the zoom commands, for instance. So you can see there you've got zoom in region, ZR, zoom to fit, there's actually 3 there, ZE, ZF and ZX. Zoom all to fit, ZA. I think we had a look at that one on Monday. Now, with your hotkeys, if a command doesn't have a hotkey, you can actually allocate one to it. Okay. I don't. Yes.
I'm on this page here, and I want to customize. But does that bring up that little screen there on the right? How did you bring up that?
Yes, I clicked on this button here, keyboard shortcuts.
Yes.
Customize. This brings up this one here. I've gone up to here and I put in the word zoom.
Why it's just brought up something different for me there.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're using a command frequently and you think, okay, well, there's no shortcut for it, but I'd like there to be a shortcut, you can go in through keyboard shortcuts and allocate one to it. So, and then, write it down, remember what it is, and then use it from then on. So, and as I say, if you just want to find out what the shortcuts are that are currently allocated, then you just scroll through the list and have a look there. If I clear that, notice here we've got properties, PP or Control 1. Now the properties is this one over here. See properties here? So if you happen to close the properties palette, you can actually bring it back by typing PP. Okay, for instance. So as we, I guess, as we learn more about Revit and use Revit each session, I'm going to say, okay, well, this is the command that we're going to use for this. We're going to, start the wall command, or we're going to add a door or window. And I'm going to say, okay, well, here's the button on the ribbon to use. Alternatively, you can actually type WA for wall, or DR for door, or WN for window, for instance. So you can actually drive the software using the keyboard, which I find is far quicker. So I do encourage you to actually try and sort of remember and use shortcuts as much as you can. So this is options. Now the other thing, I'm not going to go through this the whole lot here, but if you go down to, or go to graphics, here you can actually change, for instance, the colour of the background. Okay, so the background itself is white. If you prefer a dark background, you could actually change it to black. if you're an AutoCAD user and you're used to using AutoCAD in model space, you can change it to black. Oddly enough, when I'm using AutoCAD, I now prefer to use white as a background. But the thing with AutoCAD is that, as you can appreciate with AutoCAD, when you draw lines, you're not drawing black lines all the time, you're actually drawing lines of different colours. And not all colours contrast well with white. Okay. So, but in Revit, we generally, when we draw, as you'll see, all of our line work is black. So it works with black on white. But yes, you can change the background colour if you wish. Now, the other one that I might draw your attention to is spelling, because when we actually add text and general annotation to views, I would like you, once you've actually typed out, put in labels and leader text and notes and so forth, when you finish doing all that in a view, I would like you to do a spell check. Okay. Because there's nothing more unprofessional than a drawing going out with spelling mistakes.
Can I just ask, do you use the Australian or the American standard or British standard?
The one here is British, yeah.
British, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just test American stuff.
In this country, we say Z. We do not say Z.
Yeah, but
and,
there's also specialisation.
Yeah,
Z.
yeah.
Ugh, yeah.
Yeah. But for spelling purposes, yeah, just be careful with that one because by default it's actually set to American English. So, colour becomes, COLOR, not OUR, for instance.
Sorry, so are we changing that now?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, just change that. And I would also change it at home. Yeah. British English? Yeah, most definitely. Yep. So, yeah, so that's your options.
So we'll just click OK once we've done.
Yeah, just click OK and close that one. So that's all from the File tab. Now, what I'll get you to do is in the project browser, and you don't need to pull it out like this. I'll just move it up there so we can see it. So if you can appreciate, the project browser is essentially a snapshot of our current project. It, as I said on Monday, it contains all of the views in the project, whether they be floor plans, ceiling plans, elevations, sections, details. It also contains legends, schedules, and sheets for printing. And it also contains all of the included families in the project itself. And the families, I'll talk more about families later, but every family belongs to a category. And of course, the list here is organised by category. So as you load in new families, of course, they will be contained within their respective families in the lists here. So, if we go down to, scroll down to walls, for instance, at the end. Okay, walls. You'll see that underneath walls, you've got basic wall, curtain wall, and stacked wall. Now, each of those subfolders is the name of the respective family. So we've got the walls as the main category. Basic wall is one family, stacked is another, and curtain is a third family of walls. Now, if you expand basic wall, you'll see that you've got a number of different types of walls under basic wall.
Can I ask why there's curtain walls in the basic wall?
Where are we?
About 30mm, you're in basic wall 30mm, and then you've got CW 10250.
After retaining 300mm, it's got curtain wall stacked for all the windows.
Yeah, it's got curtain wall down there.
So curtain wall is that's a family name,
Yeah.
and under curtain wall, you've got curtain wall as a type, exterior glazing as a type, storefront, and then storefront with corner.
Now, in your basic wall, what is the CW?
I don't know that it stands for curtain wall. It might be something else. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. Given that this is an American project, yeah, they have different descriptions for their wall types.
So we'll shut the curtain wall down, just for a minute, and go back up to where you were.
Just collapse curtain wall. So so the thing is that in this particular project, we have the 3 different wall families, and within each of those families we have different types of wall. So they are types within the family, within each respective family. If you were to have a look at, if you collapse walls and then go to windows, for instance, so you see there you've actually got, under Windows category, you've got casement 3x3 with trim. So that's a family. Okay, so the casement 3x3 with trim is the family name. And beneath that, you've got 2 size variations.
Yeah, they're not very.
They're both the same, aren't they?
Yep.
I don't have those ones.
No. The only difference is there's probably a gap between the times and the 1220, but so the actual size variation of the windows, they're known as types. So 1220 by 1220 is a type of casement 3x3. So you've got families and you've got types. All right. So that when you create a family, for instance, you then set about to actually create different sizes of windows. So you actually create different sizes, you put in your proportions, and you actually physically change the size of the window and then save it as a type. So that when you load the family into a project, you've got a selection. You say, okay, well I want an 18 by 15, okay, or I've got a 12 by 12, or I've got a 6 by 9. They're all the different types of that family, okay. So the family name is the style of window or door, and then the sizes are the types within that family, okay. So, as I say, the project browser contains all of the components of that particular project. Now, if we expand floor plans, as we did on Monday, we actually double-clicked to open up a few of these floor plans. So one of them was floor 1. So double-click floor 1. I'll actually get you to double-click floor 2. And floor 1 furniture plan. Okay, so across the top here, you've got floor 1, floor 2, and floor 1 furniture plan, plus the 3D. Okay, so 3D, floor 1, floor 2, and floor 1 furniture plan. Now, I'm just going to put this, by the way, the project browser here and the properties here, as I said, can be undocked. Now, if you happen to close these, like so, the thing is that they both need to be on screen at all time because you're going to be constantly using them. Now, if you inadvertently close these, how do you get them back? Okay.
So I'm closing that little project browser window, am I?
Yeah, you can close them down. Yeah, close them down. Now, if you want to get them back, if you go to the View tab, okay, so click on the View tab, go right across to User Interface, across on the screen now, across to the right, User Interface, and see the drop list there? So View tab, User Interface. Now, if you happen to lose the project browser or the properties palette, this is one way of actually getting them back again. So notice there that the project browser is unticked, as is properties. So if you re-tick like so, and then open that again and re-tick properties, it brings back those palettes. Now also on this drop list, you can also untick things like the status bar. Now, where's the status bar? Down the bottom. Runs along the bottom. So if you untick status bar, you'll see that it disappears from the bottom of the screen. Okay, and you can also turn off the navigation bar. Where's the navigation bar? This one here, that's the navigation bar. Okay, so that unticking that turns that one off. All right. Now, the view cube itself looks like that, but you won't see the view cube until you actually go into a 3D view. Okay, so it's not advisable to turn these things off because you will need them.
Turn them all back on.
Sorry? Turn them all back on again, yeah. So, so navigation bar on, project browser, properties, status bar, and that'll do it, I think. Now, notice also here, at the bottom there, you've got keyboard shortcuts. So it's another way of actually getting up that keyboard shortcuts dialog that we had a look at earlier, okay? And note the shortcut, the shortcut for keyboard shortcuts. Okay, KS, all right? So if I escape and clear that, if I type KS, it brings up keyboard shortcuts. Now, so when you type KS or a keyboard shortcut, you don't have to hit the enter key. Okay, so no enter. Now, with these palettes, if you want to put them back, if you've undocked them and you want to put them back to where they were quickly, you can double click on the top part of them like that. So double click and double click. Now for me, it's put them into a different position. Let's put them over here. Has that happened to you?
Yeah, it's too much space.
Okay, so the thing is, we drag them out. Now that I think mine's been combined. If they don't behave themselves, they can be a bit difficult to put back where they were. But essentially, if you drag them back over here to the left, at a certain point, they will sort of dock. See how that's docking there? See the blue outline? And that will dock and go back to where it was. And now this one here, if we bring that back down to here, at a certain point, it goes blue, but it needs to Yeah, there we go. That's see the blue outline there? I'm right down the bottom of the screen there. Now if I let my mouse go, it'll actually dock and go back to where it was. But don't be too concerned about that, as long as they are docked somewhere and you can get to them easily.
I've just accidentally closed it.
So if you now the thing is now with shortcuts, for instance, if you actually lose the properties palette, the shortcut for that was, remember what it was? Double P or Control key 1. So PP. So that PP, typing PP will get rid of it, typing PP will bring it back, or Control 1.
I seem to have lost it all. I've made it all disappear.
Okay, all right, so just having a look, number 8 on your sheets, number 8 is pointing up to these here. Now, these are known as view tabs. So number 8, view tabs. So if you can appreciate, as you click on each tab, it will actually show you the view that's connected to it, like so. So view tabs. Now did we do number 5? That was I don't think we did. No, did we? No. Number 5. Now what I'll get you to do, if you can click on the architecture tab. Click on the architecture tab and then go up and click on the wall icon here, or tool. So wall. Now, so having clicked on the wall tool, Revit is expecting us to select a wall type and perhaps draw a wall. We're not going to do that, but notice that you've got this green band across here now that wasn't there before, and you've also got this tab up here which is Modify Place Wall up here. Now, along here you've got some settings that you can change. For instance, the height of the wall, the location line, whether it's a chain of walls, and the offset. Now, collectively, those settings are known as options, and hence that bar is called the options bar. Okay, so options bar.
So that'll be number 5?
That's number 5, yes. Now, depending on what you're doing in Revit, so depending on what you're doing, the options will be different for every command. So if you go back to the architecture tab, now note that we are still in the wall command. If you go back to the architecture tab and you click door, as if you're adding a door, Revit would automatically drop you out of the wall command and then put you into the door command. So you don't have to exit one command before you actually start another. Okay. Now notice that when we're placing a door, not that we've got any real options there, but the options bar changes. So if you go back to architecture and select window, for instance, it's very similar. But depending on what you're doing, the options will then obviously change for that particular command. Okay. Now, if you click a command and you want to exit that command and go back to a neutral position, you can hit the escape key a couple of times, or you can come up and click the modify button up here, this one up here, and that will clear the command. So,
it's like an undo button.
not so much an undo, but just it just clears the deck. It just sort of takes you back to a neutral position. So, 5 was the options bar. Options. Yeah. Number 8 was a view tab. Right, can I get you to just reopen or just click on the tab that reads 3D, this one here. You can also open up a 3D view by going up to the quick access toolbar. Do you know where that is?
Next to the file tab.
Next to the file, just above the file tab up here. So this, remember this is the quick access toolbar here. Now if you want to open up a 3D view, you can do it from here. See the little house symbol? Okay, that basically takes you to this view here, 3D in brackets. Okay. Now, to rotate around the building, did I cover that on Monday? To actually pivot around the building? So, the view cube itself is one way of navigating in a 3D view. So, the ring around the cube here, if you click and hold and drag, you can rotate the building like that. That's quite a slow method. If you click on one of the faces of the cube, you can go to a top view, like so. So clicking on the top. If you then click on the triangle below that, you can go to a front elevation. Okay.
Cool.
Front. If you click on the arrow to the side here, you'll actually go to a right elevation, and then back, and then left. The little house at the top there, can you see that one up there? That will take you back to your default 3D view. Now, if in this view, if you want to move around the model in a quicker way than using the cube, if you press and hold the shift key and press and hold the wheel and then drag the mouse, so press the wheel, drag, release, press the wheel, drag and release, and at the same time holding the shift key down. Okay, if you press and hold the wheel and move up and down, that's what happens. Side to side like that. Okay, so that'll be the quickest way to actually sort of just move around the model in a 3D view. Okay. Now, something that I'd like to show you, so that we can have a look inside the model. What I'll get you to do is put your mouse over the cube and then click the right mouse button over the cube to bring up that menu. Go down to Orient to View, go across to Floor Plans.
So we've clicked Orient to View.
Yeah. we're not clicking anything at the moment. We're just sort of mousing over
Go to
floor plans, and then go across and down to floor plan floor 1. Okay, and click.
Cool.
Okay, takes a minute or two. Okay, now
Go across to floor plan. And then go across to here, and then come down to floor plan.
go back to the view cube and click on the little house symbol up here. Okay, little house symbol. Roll your mouse in so you get in closer. Hold your shift key down and click your mouse to move around.
So this is it. So we're hovering our little cursor over the house up the top, are we?
Oh, no, just click on that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that brings you back to your standard 3D view.
Oh yeah.
But what's happened is that what we've just done is see the box around the model now. If you actually mouse over it like that, it's known as a section box. So it's actually put this box around the model and clipped it at floor 1. So essentially what you're seeing here in the 3D view, that's what you're seeing in the floor plan of floor 1. Okay, but it's in 3D here. And the section box is actually sort of cut through the building at that level. So you can see inside the building.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
So now we press the shift and then scroll with the press it and then in and out with the zoom.
Oh, you can roll in and out, yeah. Roll your wheel in and out. Press the shift key and the wheel and move around. Okay. And what we'll also do here, if you actually select the box itself, see the section box? You can actually click and select that. See how it has these pairs of little triangles? So if you actually click on the box, you get these little pairs of triangles on each side. If you move around, see how you've got these ones here? There's a pair there and a pair down there. Can you see those?
Yep.
Now, if you click on the top triangle there, and it's called a control, and drag upwards, it then shows you more of the model. So if you move the box, so what you're doing is moving the box higher and revealing more of the model. So as we move higher, we're now getting into the guest rooms. So we can sort of see inside the guest rooms. But for instance, if you click and hold, so when you mouse over these arrows, when it reads control like that, you can left click and then move, and you can then clip the model that way. So the section box is quite useful because if you want to have a look at a smaller part of the model in 3D, get inside the model, you can use the section box to actually just restrict the view to one part of the model, such as the staircase. If you just wanted to pick up on the staircase, you could actually use this technique with a section box to actually just show you the staircase. It's quite a nice little presentation tool as well. Okay, so we were having a look at something called a section box. Now, the section box itself is just an aspect of the view that you can actually turn off and on in the 3D view. And the way that you control it, in other words, turning it off and on, is a setting which is in the properties. So if you have a look at, go to the properties of this current view. So the properties here, the properties that we're seeing here are the properties of the current view, which is 3D, and it says 3D view here. Now this particular thing here is a section box. If you scroll down, you'll find a property called section box. If you untick that, it removes the section box and takes you back to the full model. Okay. Now, if you move around the model, for instance, and let's say that you select the front door here. See the front door? So if you click on it and select it, it'll turn blue in colour and go a translucent colour. The front door itself, although it's meant to be a front door, is coming up as a curtain wall. See that over here? So when you select something in your model, Revit tells you what it is over here in the properties palette.
So you click on it, when it's blue, you click on it, is that right?
So if you click on it, it will actually, if you can get the whole thing, if you mouse over it, it'll actually pre-select. See how it's highlighting there?
Mine's got a little dotted line around it. Yours is a solid line.
You can see the outline.
Mine's a dotted line. It does the same shape.
Now, if you go up to the top of the screen, now notice that what you've selected is called a curtain wall storefront. So it's meant to be obviously an entrance door or an entrance, a set of doors with panelling or glazing around the outside. So what they've done is they've used a curtain wall for this. Okay, that's fine. What I'll get you to do is just go up to the modify panel, or actually view. See the view panel up here? Okay. Now here, this icon here is called selection box. I'll get you to click on it.
Click on it.
Click on it.
Yep.
Okay. Selection box. So if you just want to have a look at in 3D, a very small component or part of your model, you can select on an object and click selection box. And what it does, if I hit the escape key, it actually puts a section box, there's still a section box that it's using around that one object to isolate it. And you can still move around it, you can sort of like that. But it's a very good and quick technique to actually select an individual object to sort of see the detail in it and isolate everything else. Okay, and again, to remove that section box, how do you do it?
Modify.
Sorry?
Modify. I'll click that selection box.
Go back to the properties and untick section box as we did before. Okay, so it's a section box, it's a smaller section box around one component. Okay, now this brings us to number 10 on your sheets. And number 10 is known as the view control bar. Okay, view control bar. Now on the view control bar, you've got a scale 1 to 100, so that's down here. You've got the view scale. Next to that you've got something called detail level. Okay. Next to that you've got a cube. that reads Visual Styles or Style. Now what I'd like you to do is click on that cube and pop up the list. Yeah.
I just didn't undo the, I couldn't undo it from the,
Now what I'd like you to do is just go up the list and choose Hidden Line. Yeah, notice that notice the save reminder that comes up. Okay, so this is your one and only prompt, or this is your only prompt for saving. Okay, when I work with any piece of software, what I tend to do is use the shortcut, which is Control key S, and I do that maybe 30 times an hour. I do it every 2 minutes, literally. Just keep doing Control S, save, save, save. Okay, just get into the habit of it. Because Control key S, yeah.
Control
plus S.
Yep.
Control key plus S, just does a quick save. Okay.
So we're doing that now?
Yeah, you can do. Yeah, you can do. Otherwise, you come up to the quick access toolbar. See up here? See the little disc up here? Save, Control S, same thing. Now, so going back to the cube down here, this is Visual Style. So this allows you to change the appearance of a view in terms of what we call visual style. Now, before we changed to Hidden Line, it was actually set to shaded, I think, or it might have been set to consistent colours. Just try a few of those variations. You might also like to try one called Realistic.
Ray trace shows your system.
Yeah, Ray Trace is another one. But what Realistic does, and again, if you move around the model, or if you zoom in, roll to zoom in, if you have a look through the windows now, or the curtain window, the curved curtain window, you can see the planting, the plants, and if you zoom in fairly close, if you have a look at the walls, see the brickwork in the walls now, the brickwork and the block work, and the timber assigned to the doors. So these elements, these parts of the building, have a particular material assigned to them that reflects what they're made of. Okay, so standard brick, block, timber, glass, and so forth. And Realistic shows you those textures.
When I zoom it right in and it goes off the page, I think it must just
Okay, so from here, if I want to then zoom to see the entire building, I can type the letters ZF, zoom to fit. If I go back now to Visual Style and select, let's say, consistent colours, you'll see if you go along the icons down the bottom here, you'll see one, if you mouse over one, it'll actually read Shadows Off. It's got a cross next to it. So, for instance, you can actually click on that one and turn your shadowing on. Little sun symbol there, sun path off. Click on the little sun symbol and choose sun path on.
It's for your sun studies.
Yeah, this is for your sun studies. So just choose the option at the top here. Use the specified project location, date and time. And just do a ZF, zoom to fit, and then you can see it'll actually show you where the sun is, the current sun position in relation to the building itself. And you can actually click on the sun itself and drag it and then change the time of day, for instance.
That's so cool.
So the software itself, as I say, the software, when you when you're actually drawing up a building, you can actually orientate the building to true north or from true north. You can set the exact geographical location, get it orientated in relation to true north, and then you can predict very accurately the shadows that are going to be projected from the building itself. And then, yes, you can actually sort of run what we call sun studies.
Yeah, that's
Sorry?
that's a massive lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've had to do a couple of those kind of geographical webbing from different.
All right. Now I'm just actually going to turn that off. So sun path off, and I'm going to go back to visual style and go back to hidden line. And I'm going to turn off my shadows. There we go. Now, by the way, there is a group of controls down in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. See where the yellow highlighter is down here.
Yep.
Now, if you mouse over these, I'm not worried about select links, but can you see this one, select underlay elements? You've got select pinned elements, and you've got select elements by face, and lastly you've got drag elements on selection. Now, if you just want to make a note with these controls, if they have a red cross against them, it means that that feature is disabled.
Sorry, what was that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So if any icon has a red cross against it, it means that feature is disabled. Now, for any future sessions and working at home, my recommendation is to have no red crosses against the first three, or so when I say the first three, the first four. Okay. The only red cross I would suggest that you leave is the one for drag elements on selection. Leave that function disabled, but all the others enable them. Okay. Well, for instance, we haven't yet talked about underlay elements, but that will come in a later session. But for instance, this one here, which is select elements by face, if that one is disabled, and I'll actually turn it off, it just means that if I want to select the roof, for instance, I can't click directly on it to select it. See how I'm not able to select it? I have to go to the edge. Now, if I enable that, I can then click directly on the surface to select the object. Okay, that's one of the, and it can create frustration or annoyance if it's turned off. Okay.
So you want it on?
I want it on. Yeah. Okay. So I guess these icons, and quite often students will say, listen, I can't select this wall, I can't select this roof, or I can't select this underlay element. And that's the reason why, okay? So it's just to avoid frustration in the future. If you can remember to actually turn them on, but leave this one off.
So the red cross means that it's disabled.
Yes.
You want no red crosses on the first three.
The first four can be, first four there, yeah. The fifth one is disabled.
And how are we enabling and disabling?
Just click on them.
Okay.
Left click on them, yeah.
Okay.
Now, let's say that we wanted to have a look underneath the roof. Okay, so we want to be able to, I guess, turn it off temporarily. So what we do is we select the roof by single clicking. Now we go back to the view control bar down here. Now there's a little pair of glasses. Can you see the glasses there? So if you mouse over it, it says temporary hide isolate. Okay, now click on the glasses and then go up and select hide element. Okay, so this is what we call a temporary hide. So we're hiding single elements. All right. Now notice the colour of the border of the view. It's a cyan, a light blue colour, and it says temporary hide isolate up here, top left hand corner. Now if you select the wall here, see how I'm selecting the wall? Now if I go back to the little glasses icon, I can then choose hide element and hide the wall as a single element. So what we're doing at the moment is we're just, I guess, for working purposes, and this is just, we're doing temporary hiding, because there might be occasions where you just need to sort of hide a few things to sort of, you know, get a bit of clarification or check something, some detail. So we're just doing temporary hiding. Now, if you want to bring those items back, as in unhide them, go back to the glasses icon, and at the bottom there of the pop-up it says reset. Okay, so click reset and that will bring them back.
Do you want to save? We don't have to save it because we're not worrying about it. So it's just come up with a little box, project not saved recently.
Oh, you can save it, yeah. If it's prompting you to save, just save it. Now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to select this wall again, select the same wall, and then go down to the glasses icon here, and I'd like you to select isolate category. Okay, so select the wall, same wall, and then isolate category. And then to deselect, okay, deselect the wall that you've selected, just click away from it in a free area here, or click modify. So what has happened? What's that done?
It's left all the element which are wall on the screen.
Yeah, so anything that belongs to the wall category is left visible and everything else is turned off. Okay, so that's isolate category. Now, can I get you to type the letters KS for keyboard shortcuts? And can I, in the search, can I get you to type the word hide? Hide, yes, hide. Now, if you scroll down, okay, you'll see that we've got, see here we've got hide element, HH. We've got hide category, HC, and we've got reset temporary hide isolate, HR. Okay. Now, if I go up to the search again and type the word isolate, this time I've got isolate element and I've got isolate category. So what we have just done is an isolate category, and the shortcut for that one is IC. Okay? And again, we've got reset temporary hide isolate HR. So you know where I'm leading? So I'm going to close the keyboard shortcuts dialog. So if you isolate or hide elements in a view, to get them back, the shortcut for that is HR. Okay, so if we type HR, it brings everything back. If I select the roof again and type HH, it does the hide element. Okay, so HH to hide element, HR brings it back. If I select a wall and type IC, that's isolate category. Okay, HR to bring it back. And so forth. So we're just talking about temporarily hiding elements and isolating. So if I select one of the windows, for instance, okay, select one of these casement 3x3, and I type IC, it's going to turn everything else off except the windows, just those windows. Okay, so we're actually just isolating the category of windows. So that's all that remains visible. Okay, and HR will bring them back.
How about if I hide about 10 elements and I just want to bring one element back?
You're going to hide 10 elements?
Yes.
And you want to bring one back?
It's not possible to do them individually as a temporary. If you so if you do HH there, HH there, this wall HH, so hide element, that door. Yeah, it's not possible to bring them back individually. The only way you can bring them back is to do a reset of that view.
Start again.
Yeah. I don't want to throw too much at you at the moment, okay? But we can go another level of hiding that is more permanent. But I'm not going to go through that today. Okay, we're just talking about temporary hiding, which is quite quick to initiate and quick to bring back. But you can hide individual things, but you have to bring them back all at once. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Yeah, with a reset. So you either type HR or you go back to your little glasses symbol and you do a reset. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now, so I think each of you still has the 4 views open here. So what I'd like you to do is go to the View tab and click Tile Views. Tile Views. So depending on how many views you currently have open, they'll all now be tiled. So yeah, so how do we zoom? So ZF will do one view, but what if we want to do them all? ZA. Yeah, ZA. So ZA is zoom all to fit. So just typing ZA will bring them all into each view zoom to fit.
I just bring mouse over each view and press Z after.
All right. Yeah, that's the quick way. Okay. So if you have your tiled views like this, and let's say that you want to, if you want to make the floor one furniture plan the primary view, do you remember how to do that? So you click into it to make it current, and then you go up to your Windows panel and you actually click Tab Views. Now note the shortcut. So Tab Views is TW and Tile Views is WT. Okay?
Yeah.
So if I click into this view down here and type TW, it gives me one view. In this view, if I type WT, it gives me the 4 views. Okay? That's TW, that's WT. So we're going from 1 view to 4 views. Okay? Now, the thing is, I'm just trying to get you used to using shortcuts. All right? Now, you don't have to, shortcuts are an alternative. You can actually, use your ribbons if you want to, if you know where things are, or use your shortcuts if you remember what they are, okay? So sometimes when you're working with Revit, it's quite common to actually have at least 2 views open, maybe a plan view and a 3D view, okay? So you need to know how to tile them, and then how to go back to a single view. All right, so we're just, like I said, I'm just spending a bit more time just getting you used to navigating, using the controls, getting your way, sort of knowing where you are on screen and what to use where. Okay, so that last number 10, that was the view control bar. So we can control things like the view scale, the detail level, things like your, sun and lighting, shadows, and there's a few more things. So we've had a quick look at things like sort of temporary hiding, bringing things back. So I think that's probably enough with the current project. Unless there's any questions or if you want to know a little bit more about the current project. So you're happy enough with the project browser and how to get around and how to find things in the project browser. You know how to actually get the properties and project browser back if you lose them. Okay, we've talked a bit about options. So at this stage, I guess from here, we now sort of start having a look at the way that we draw and I guess the tools and techniques for actually drawing what we call linear objects, they being things like walls and line work. So we sort of start having a look at the drawing process itself. Before we sort of launch into actually drawing up a floor plan as such. But I think what I'd like to do before we sort of do that, I'd like to sort of digress slightly and actually talk about, I guess, Revit in a broader context and where it fits into the industry, particularly in terms of what we call building information modelling. So I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that, and then we'll come back to the software and sort of have a look at, where we actually start in producing a new project. So with the current project, to actually, I guess, if this was a project that you were working on and you know obviously created this model, you've opened up a few views. I guess in shutting down the project, essentially you would save it, do a final Control S. If you've made changes to the project and you haven't saved it, when you close it down it will prompt you to save, so that's good. What I'll get you to do is just make one of the views full screen, it doesn't matter which one. Okay. Now you'll notice that you've got these view tabs here, so there are 4 of them currently. Now you're going to have to close down 3 of those view tabs before you can actually close the project. So, and when I say that, because the thing is that you have to close the views here that are not currently visible. You have to actually close those first before you can actually close the final view and close the project. Now the thing is that when you have multiple views open, and it might be that you know, if you open up one of the elevation views, for instance, we haven't looked at elevation views. So elevations, building elevations. So if I click on east, there's the east elevation. I can go down, if I actually go down to sections and building section and open up one of those, double click. So each time I open up a view, I get all of these tabs coming up. Now, so east-west section is the current view. Now, if I want to close all of the other views here very quickly with one mouse click, I can go up to this icon here, which is Close Inactive Views. See how it has the red cross on it? You'll also see it over here on the Windows panel. See Close Inactive? So by clicking on that button there, it shuts down all the inactive views. So as you're working with the software, it's a good idea to actually close your inactive views every so often. Okay, I call it housekeeping. Okay, and of course you'll need to do it just prior to shutting down. So once you've done that, you can then close the last view here. Yes.
So I did try and follow you, so I can't get an elevation off of basically the one floor, but if I was in the whole plan, then I can get the
when you finally click on this one here to close it, it actually closes the file. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave the program open. That's fine. Now, as I said, we're just going to have a look at, I guess, Revit itself in a broader context. And just sort of have a look at the acronym or the term Building Information Modelling. Has anyone heard that said before?
Yeah.
BIM? B-I-M?
Last 2 days.
Sorry?
The last 2 days.
For the last 2 days. Has it been explained to you?
Not
No.
really.
Okay. So building information modelling, an approach to the entire building life cycle. So the BIM process supports the ability to coordinate, update and share design data with team members throughout the design, construction and management phases of a building's life. So essentially, Revit itself as a piece of software is known as a BIM or it's part of it's a modelling tool that fits into what we call BIM, Building Information Modelling. BIM is not something that's tangible. It's not a thing. It's a process. Okay, so at the heart of this process is your Revit model. All right. Now, Revit itself is known as a parametric building modeler, and it's a integral part of the process of BIM. So parametric means you can establish a relationship between two building elements, and when one changes, the other changes with it. Okay, so the thing is that if you put a building together and you put a roof on it, if you move a wall, for instance, the roof will actually extend with the wall itself. So there is a relationship built up between the components of the building. So building signifies that this is software designed for working with buildings. So that's the building in building information modelling, as opposed, as I say here, as opposed to gears or roads. Modeler signifies how a project is built in a single file around the building model. Now the thing is that when you're working with Revit, the thing is that the whole premise behind Revit and building the single model is that you start with the model, and of course automatically coming off that model is your elevations, your plans, certain plans. There may be automatically sections generated, but the thing is that once the model is built, you can actually draw a line through the building, through a plan, and generate a section or a detail. And the view is automatically created. Okay, you don't have to create the view. And that's the beauty of it. That once the model is built, everything else is derived from the model. And that's the whole sort of ethos behind building information modelling. So when a change is made anywhere in the model, all of the views update. So the thing is, you make a change to the central model and everything else updates. And that's, having said that, it's basically views that are looking at the model itself. Okay. Now, Autodesk Revit coordinates with two other packages, Autodesk Revit MEP and Structure. Now the thing is that the Revit software itself, the software you're using for architectural purposes, but it can be used for structural and it can be used for mechanical. Now by mechanical, mechanical is what's above your head. So that's the air conditioning, the electrical and the plumbing. That's all the mechanical aspect of it. So as I say, the software itself can be used for architectural design, MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, structural and construction. Now this slide here is essentially explaining the process of BIM, Building Information Modelling. Now, at the heart of this is your Revit model. And the thing is that when we talk about Revit as being a parametric modeler, now Revit is not the only software that does this. Okay? And it's probably not the best at it. I mean, it's just one package of a few that does this sort of thing.
So why are we studying Revit instead of the others?
Because it is the most widely used. Okay, because it's the software that's been adopted by the majority of building designers and architects around the world.
So what would be the best?
I haven't used any others, so I can't do a comparison. Daniela, who knows how to use ArchiCAD, will give us an insight in a few weeks' time.
Tame's used some as well.
Yeah, what have you used?
Yes, I think it's CAD-link between structure, architecture, and MEP as well. So it has like a system, so we can like when we work with architect work with the structure, so we can like know each other. And,
Okay.
in white, yes, in white, AutoCAD can't do that, and the other software can't do that.
No.
Yes.
No, Revit produces the model. Okay. Now, Revit produces the architectural model. It can also be used to produce or document the mechanical services. So essentially what happens is the architect produces the architectural model. That gets handed over to the mechanical people. They essentially link the architectural model to a mechanical file, and then we're still using Revit, so they link in the architectural model, and then they start overlaying all the air conditioning, electrical and plumbing within another file in Revit. So, and we can then, that can then be handed over to the structural engineers, and they can then overlay all the structural aspect of the building in another file. Now the thing is that these three files can then be pulled together into another piece of software called Autodesk Navisworks. And Navisworks is where really the essence of BIM comes together, Building Information Modelling, because in Navisworks you actually pull in the architectural, the mechanical and the structural, overlay all three, and having done that, the software can then highlight any clashes. So any clashes between walls, air conditioning, and structural elements can all be identified in one piece of software. And the software itself will actually produce lists. It'll actually sort of highlight all the problem areas in terms of clashes well before the building is even considered, even before construction takes place. So that's the essence of BIM. So that's working with the 3D models in that respect. Now the thing is that the model itself is the heart of the BIM process. So it starts off here at conceptual design. Now the thing is that when you're using Revit, you don't have to start off by drawing walls and putting in doors and windows. You can start off with primitive shapes as a conceptual design. So you can actually put your building together with shapes. And from those shapes, you can actually convert the sides of those entities to walls, add windows and doors, for instance, put roofs on, and then work towards constructing a building from primitive shapes. So it's known as something called level of detail or level of design. So you can go from those primitive shapes all the way through to a fully documented building. Now the thing is that as we move around, so the model itself can start off in this form. We then go to detailed design. We can use the model for analysis. We can then sort of produce documentation from the model. As I say, it can be then handed over to other organisations to do the fabrication of components. It can be used for construction 4D and 5D. So 4D and 5D are basically cost and timing, producing timelines. Yeah, so yeah, costing and timelining, project management. the model itself or the software itself can be used for construction logistics. In other words, you don't have to, if you're building the building itself, you don't have to sort of put formwork or rigging around the whole building. You can actually sort of, factor in or sort of coordinate rigging in certain areas of the building, and then, once that part is built, you can move it somewhere else, and that sort of coordination aspect. Buildings, does anyone know what buildings around Adelaide used Revit and so forth for their pre-construction? So we've got Adelaide Oval, we've got the new hospital, the building that you're currently in, all used Revit. So as I say, and the buildings like the hospital, for instance, used Navisworks for clash detection. So all of that sort of stuff was worked out beforehand. You can imagine what a task that would be. Yeah. And the thing is that the people working on the modelling aspect of it would go a week, do what they had to do. At the end of the week, they would run all their clash detections, and then next week they would sort them out. Early in the next week, they would actually sort out all the clashes, and then continue on. So it's a huge undertaking. So the model itself can be used for operations and maintenance, and then it can be plugged back in again. It can be recalled at a later stage for any sort of renovation work. Okay, recalled and then used for renovation. And in fact, when you people get to the next level of Revit, which is in October, you're going to be doing or undertaking a project where you actually do a renovation and extension on a building, little domestic building. So you're going to be given a building that you deem an existing building. You'll be doing some demolition on it and then rebuilding it. And that's the assessment. That's the task in the next part of Revit in October. So essentially that is that's the building. That's what building information modelling is. Okay. So any questions on that? And I guess the thing is that you have to draw the distinction between Revit and building information modelling. So what is Revit? What is building information modelling? Well, building information modelling is the process that uses Revit as the core, as its model. Okay.
Revit is one application that uses building information modelling as its model for delivery.
Yeah, I mean, we could well replace the building information modelling, the central part of that, with ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD could be the modeler. It's
one is the process, and one is the actual.
The physical model. Yeah. So the model itself is the heart of it all, and it can be used for so many reasons. And the thing is that with the model that Revit produces, the thing is that in terms of building components, every part of that building component, that 3D building component, every part of that has this intelligence built in. So there's a whole stack of information that's contained within a wall type, for instance. And there's so much more information you can actually put in. So, with doors and windows, manufacturers now produce their doors and windows for your Revit models. And within that particular family, you can build in all the specifications for that particular window or door.
So if I have a 2D model for AutoCAD, I can implement that in the Revit. Like if that's a 2D model of the doors or whatever.
If you have a 2D...
The model just of a door, for example.
Yep.
Or a window. And that's it's the AutoCAD file. I can implement that.
You can bring it into Revit as a 2D.
Yeah.
But you can't convert it to a 3D. Is that what you?
Yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that if you have an AutoCAD 2D drawing and bring it into Revit, it will always only ever be 2D. Yeah.
It's the same problem you have with SketchUp. If you have a unit two-dimensional, it'll only ever be two-dimensional.
I was wondering whether it can pick it up actually.
Because it has to be constructed.
No.
The third dimension has to be constructed around that.
Directly related to that.
Okay, yeah, so if you're looking, so you're wanting to know what exercise and assignments that you'll be doing, have a look at the learning program. Remember we had a look at that on Monday? So if we go back to the Learn site and we go to Start Here and go to the learning schedule for semester students.
We're term students, aren't
we? Yeah, term students. Yeah, your term students because you're actually doing this unit twice a week. Now, the schedule will identify or just show you all of the exercises, the quizzes, and the assessment tasks. So the assessment tasks for this unit are actually sort of, they come at the very end, so there's 2 of them. But
so there's only 2 assessment tasks?
There's only 2 assessment tasks, and they're at the very end of the unit, one of which is a drawing exercise, and the other is an exercise where you actually sort of do a bit of assigning of materials and rendering. But essentially the main assessment for this unit is the drawing up of a little building, and it's a drawing exercise at the end. Prior to that, it's really just, as we go through from week to week, you'll just be doing exercises, small exercises and more substantial exercises, sort of longer exercises and so forth. So for instance, eventually we'll actually sort of have a look at drawing up a single-storey dwelling and then a 2-storey dwelling. So that really encompasses all of the pre-learning for the unit itself.
When will you be releasing those? Because it says the assessment task 2 exams, but I can't find it.
No, that's the other thing that I don't actually show students everything all at once. So as we work through the weeks, I'll actually then turn on various exercises and tasks until eventually we get to the assessment task at the end.
Right. So
it's just to prevent students from working too far ahead and sort of bypassing all the learning exercises and going straight to the assessments, okay? Because the important thing is that students go through, and we actually sort of go through week by week, go through sort of methodically, go through the exercises and just make sure that you get all of the required learning before attempting the assessment task.
The assessment task is on the day, so that it is an exam for them.
Yes, yep. So the assessment task is on the day, so it's designed to be done in 3 hours. And yes, so you'll sort of start it on the day, finish it on the day, and submit it, basically. Yep. Okay, so I guess we're at 4 o'clock. We're going to 4:30 today. We might sort of look at finishing a bit earlier, but at this stage, what I'd like you to do is back on the Learn site, if you can just go to Revit Short Exercises. So just scrolling down here. Now there's the second quiz that I'd like you to undertake is this one here called the interface quiz. So now that we've actually gone through the interface, I'd like you to attempt this quiz. So having written down all the answers against the numbers on the handout, this quiz should be quite straightforward for you. So just attempt that one. You will need to get it all correct. Now, has everyone done the first quiz, which is the seating position? Yeah. Okay. So the first quiz that was back here under Start Here. So again, in our session on Monday, we talked about workplace procedures and safety requirements. I went through and talked about correct posture, and students attempted this quiz here, which is correct sitting position. So both of those quizzes will need to be completed. So as I say, if you do the interface quiz now, all right, what I'll get you to do, in the remaining time that we have for this session, I'll get you to just go back to Revit now. All right. What we're having a look at, we'll continue this in our next session. But I thought if we, at the moment, start the program, and now what we're going to do is essentially, if we're going to work with Revit, we have to start a new project to produce a model. So at this point, does anyone recall what this screen is known as? The home screen, good. So we're at the home screen. So here we can either open an existing Revit model or we can start a new one. Now when you click the new button here, it gives you a new project dialog, and it has up here template file. So what it's expecting you to do is, in the drop list, choose an appropriate template to start a new project. Now, as I said in our previous session, the one most appropriate to what we're doing is this one here, which is the architecture template. So select that one, and what we are doing is creating a new project. So we don't change this at all down here, but we click OK. Now, in this new project, where we are at the moment is that we are in a view called ground floor. Now, if you open up, if you go down, if you have a look at the project browser, you'll see that you've got ground floor and you've got level 1. Now, we are currently in a floor plan that is called ground floor. Now, if you open up one of your elevations, let's say the east elevation, so if you actually double click on east under building elevations, okay, you'll see that you've got these two dashed lines. So one is ground floor and one is level 1. So these lines here are known as levels. Okay, so they define the heights of your building. Now, typically when we start drawing, we start at level 0. In other words, floor height. Now the thing is, with these levels, with the names of them, such as ground floor or level 1, we can actually call them anything we like. Ground floor could be level 1, and level 1 could be level 2. Okay, and then we can go level 3, level 4, level 5. Now, if we are constructing a single-storey building, typically ground floor will just be floor level, and level 1 will be what?
Ceiling.
Ceiling level. Yeah, so we can rename them. We're not going to rename them now, but if you can just appreciate that in a standard Revit project, you have 2 levels to begin with, okay? And when we draw, we are drawing at ground floor at level 0, at 0 here. So when we produce walls, when we actually draw walls, they automatically have a height and a thickness, okay? So it's not like AutoCAD where you actually draw single lines and offset. The walls themselves are fully complete in terms of their construction. Now, if in this elevation view, you'll notice these blue triangles here. Now, if you mouse over the triangle here next to ground floor, it may actually give you a tip or say, go to floor plan. Is it saying that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, mine's not doing that, but if you double click on that blue triangle, it will take you back to the floor plan that is linked to that level. Okay. So that's nice. So, we start off building this relationship between levels and floor plans. Okay. So we're now back to where we started. Now, in this view, you've got these markers here. See this, the one at the top, one at the bottom, here left and right. So what are they?
Directional markers.
Yeah, they're your elevation markers. So top is north, bottom south, left is west, right is east. Okay. So when we are drawing up our building, we make sure that we actually are well within the elevation markers in the view. Okay. In other words, we draw centrally. So providing we do that, providing we actually draw in the middle of the view there, our elevations will be correct. And the thing is, the minute we start drawing something, as in a building, our elevations happen instantly. They're just there. We don't have to create them. We don't have to do anything with them. They are there. We can see the building automatically. Okay. So the thing is that when we start or undertake a drawing, typically what we would do, the first thing we do, I mean, obviously the thing we do before we start drawing walls is we actually set the height of our ceiling and we rename our levels. That's probably one of the first things we do. We're not going to worry about it now, but that's one of the first things that we do. So we define the floor to ceiling height. Okay. We then go back to our floor plan, and then we start drawing up our building. And to draw up our building, what do we do? Before we start drawing, what do we do? Or how do we draw? What do we draw? What's the first thing we add?
We need to know where the building envelope is.
So site plan.
Yeah.
No.
No.
First thing we start to
Oh no, I'm thinking. Even before we consider that, we're just talking about purely drawing.
North indicated.
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, what do we draw first? Oh, we could draw lines, yes, but because we're drawing a building, we start with linear objects, and they are walls. Walls, yeah. So essentially, we've got there eventually. So essentially, we draw the footprint of our building based on the actual addition of walls. So we draw the building footprint based on the wall outline. Okay. Now the thing is that we could conceivably import an AutoCAD drawing and use its line work to actually snap our walls too. Okay, and that would give us our set out. So the first thing essentially we do, I mean, obviously we're going to have a a pre-design or a design that we're going to work to actually draw our floor plan. So we sort of have an idea of the shape and the design and the size of the building. Okay, not always. So essentially what we're doing is we're actually going to the build panel, architecture tab, and we click wall. So we're just more or less talking about the drawing process at this stage. But when you click wall, Revit now expects you to produce the first wall and then draw the subsequent walls by using I guess there's probably a variety of ways that we can actually draw, and we're just talking about drawing at this stage. We're not talking about sort of drawing up buildings per se, but just the drawing process. In AutoCAD, when you draw, you produce lines. And typically when you produce a line in AutoCAD, for those that have used it, how do you actually draw a line in AutoCAD?
Which method?
How do you draw a line in AutoCAD?
What do you do to actually define a line?
A line?
Yeah, how do you draw a line?
How do you draw a line in AutoCAD?
Yes.
How?
You click on the line button and then draw a line.
Use a common line.
But what defines a line?
Its position and space.
Yeah.
Start at the beginning.
Start in the beginning.
Oh, start from
2 points.
Dot to dot.
Dot to dot. That's it. 2 points. Okay. So the thing is that if I was to draw a wall, a single wall, I've got to start somewhere. So what I do is I left click to start the wall and then left click to stop. So left click is the first point and the second left click is the second point. So point to point. Can do, yeah. So I'll do that again. I'll just undo that with Control Z. So clicking on wall. Okay. So the most basic way of drawing a linear object, such as a wall or a line, is to define it by clicking 2 points. Start point, end point. So left click, move across, in this case to the right, and left click will draw one wall segment. Okay. Now I can certainly change direction. Okay. Now the thing is that I'm still in the wall command. Okay, and it's expecting me now to click a third point, which will create the second wall segment. Okay. Now, when you're drawing like this, obviously you have to be careful to draw horizontal and vertical, but to help you with that, if you hold the shift key down, it forces the wall, in this case, to vertical. See that? Shift, clicking shift. So hold the shift key down, that forces the object to vertical, and then I can click there. I'm still drawing walls. Now the reason that I'm continuing to draw the next wall is connected to the previous. The reason for that is that I've got this option here ticked, this one called chain, up here. See that? Now chain is allowing me to continue drawing walls and they're all connected. So now if I move across to the left and I position myself directly below the starting point, the first point of the wall above, I get this blue dashed line appearing. Okay, see the blue dashed line?
Mm-hmm.
Now if I left click,
While still holding the shift.
I think you can do, yes. So if I click now, I'm directly below the start point there, and if I then click, if I move up to the start of that first wall and click, the walls will automatically join. Okay, so we're in the primary stages of learning how to draw. I mean, it's not difficult, but I guess the thing is, I guess the principles need to be explained. And it all comes back to what we call drawing aids. So Revit will actually provide you with these visual drawing aids to help you draw more accurately. And also, the thing is that apart from choosing the wall type and changing some of the options up here, notice that you've got up here, see this set of icons up here called draw? Now, in drawing up this rectangular building here, we've used this drawing tool here called line. So it creates a linear object from point to point, which is what I was trying to what I was trying to sort of get to before. Okay, how do we draw a line? Or if you draw a line, what do you do? Well, you actually click 2 points. Okay.
What's that called? That one up there?
These are known as, when you're drawing linear objects in Revit. Revit automatically gives you these icons as draw options. Okay, the default is this one called line, which is point to point.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the other option here is rectangle. Okay, so as we learn or become familiar with some of these other drawing techniques, we can draw more efficiently and say, okay, well, I know I have to draw a rectangular building, so I can use the rectangle draw tool. Or I can use one of these polygon tools, or the circle. So, for instance, if I want to draw a rectangular building, the best option here is to choose rectangle, and then all I do then is go click here, first point, second point, and it's done. Okay. Now, when you are drawing, or when you do draw, now the thing is, once you've finished drawing your walls, if you hit the escape key a couple of times, it will drop you out of the wall command. Okay. Now, once you're out of the wall command, if you actually select one of the walls that you've just drawn, what happens is that Revit gives you these dimensions. Okay, see the dimensions here? So the dimension comes up when you click a wall that you've drawn. Now the dimensions themselves can be then used to establish the length of the wall. Okay, but we'll leave that till next session. All right. So we're just exploring some of the, I guess, ways we draw, and also some of the drawing aids that Revit gives us to help us draw. Okay. And I guess bottom line here is that if you had to replicate a floor plan from let's say it's a A3 sheet, if someone gives you an A3 sheet with a floor plan on it and you have to replicate that in Revit, the idea is that you do not draw your walls exactly as in their length initially. All you do is you draw the shape roughly, okay, as it is. Don't worry about exact measurements. And once you've actually done the perimeter walls, you then go back over and adjust their lengths. Okay, so it's a bit of a backward process. or back to front
No, because you're
process.
establishing the boundary, then you put the parameters of the boundary.
Yeah. I guess the difference with AutoCAD is that with AutoCAD you more or less have to get the wall length, the length of the lines correct first, but with Revit it's the opposite. Okay, you draw the building up and then you worry about its proportions afterwards. Same as your internal walls. Okay, and it's you know, it works beautifully once you get the hang of it.
It actually is kind of flow.
Yeah.
It has a good flow.
Yeah, so it's more or less, you know, I mean, you could start off by doing a design first and then, you know, fine tuning it from there. Okay, so we're at time, we're at 4:30, so thanks everyone. I'll see you again on Monday at 10 o'clock, same room. Okay, thank you.